We're learning array lists in Java. We'll start off with a super simple example where we'll have an array list of strings, and then we'll do a slightly cooler array list where we'll actually make our own objects and put them inside of the array list. To make an array list, we just type the word array list, followed by a set of angle brackets. And inside the angle brackets, we put whatever type of object we're going to put into the array list. So I'm going to put strings inside of mine. So we're going to write string in here, and I'll call it Jedi list. And then we'll instantiate a new array list object by typing new array list angle brackets, and then after the angle brackets, a set of parentheses and a semicolon, which is kind of a weird syntax, but that's how we make an array list. If we were using a regular array, then we would just say string Jedi list brackets equals new string array. And we would have to indicate how long it is. That's one of the awesome advantages about array lists, is we don't have to indicate the length when we make it. I'll have to give this another name so it's not named the same thing. We'll say Jedi array. And we'll hit Control-Shift-O to import array lists. And if we wanted to add an item to our normal array, then we would also have to know how many elements in it are filled up, since we have to indicate which element we're putting the item at. So if we add Obi-Wan Kenobi, then we have to know that he's going in at index 0. But for an array list, all we have to do is say add, and then put Obi-Wan Kenobi in brackets. So we don't have to indicate the size of the array list when we make it, and we also don't have to remember how many elements are filled up in it. Array lists just automatically do this for you, which is super convenient. Let's add a few more items to the array list so we can play around with it a bit. Say Jedi list dot add Luke Skywalker and Qui-Gon Jinn. I think that's how you spell it. To print out the array list, we can just say system.out.println and then the name of the array list. So right now we have Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke Skywalker, and Qui-Gon Jinn. Let's remove Luke Skywalker. Removing items from array lists is also beautifully easy compared to normal arrays. We can just say Jedi list dot remove. And then in the brackets, we can type the index that we want to remove. So if we want to remove Luke Skywalker, we can put 1. Alternatively, we could also say Jedi list dot remove, and then just type in quotations Luke Skywalker. With a normal array, we would have to loop through the whole array looking for the value Luke Skywalker. And then once we removed him, we would have to shift over every element after him in the array so that there was no empty spot. And again, array lists just automatically do this for us. So I'll remove Luke Skywalker, and then we can print out the array list again. So now we just have Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn. Now I'll uncomment the first remove that we put here. So it's going to try removing element 1, which is Luke Skywalker, and then it's going to search for Luke Skywalker. It's okay that he's not going to be in the array list anymore. Since it won't find him, then just nothing will happen. So we get the exact same result. It just removed him from the first element the first time, and then when it tried removing him again, it didn't find anything. And if we had a few instances of Luke Skywalker inside of the array list, then when we say remove Luke Skywalker, then it's only going to remove the first one. So originally we have 3 Luke Skywalkers here, and then we call remove, and it just removes the first Luke Skywalker that it finds. And anytime we do these removes or add someone in, then the array list automatically keeps track of the size of the array. If we want to print out that size, then we can just say Jedi list dot size. And the size is a method, not an attribute, so we need the parentheses after. Right now we have Obi-Wan, 2 Lukes, and Qui-Gon Jinn, so we'll get a size of 4. Now let's update Luke Skywalker and change the third element to Yoda. To do that, we can just say Jedi list dot set element 2 to Yoda. So now we'll have Obi-Wan, Luke, Yoda, and Qui-Gon. We can also swap items really easily with an array list. We can just say collections dot swap, put in the name of the array list and the two elements that we want to swap. So to swap Obi-Wan and Luke, we'll just put 0 and 1. And Control-Shift-O to import collections. So now we'll have Luke, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Qui-Gon in that order. If we had a normal array, then we would have to store one of them inside of a temporary variable, then swap the two, and then put the one in the temporary variable back in. So once again, we can use one line of code to do what would take like 3 or 4 lines of code with an array. So we'd have to do something like string temp equals Jedi array 0, and then Jedi array 0 equals Jedi array 1, and then Jedi array 1 equals temp. So there's a lot more that can go wrong, and it's just more code to write out. Another handy array list method is contains. I'll just go system.out Jedi list dot contains Yoda, and it'll just give you a value of true or false if Yoda is inside of the Jedi list. And if we actually wanted to grab Yoda from the list, then we can say Jedi list dot get and then put the element that Yoda's at, which right now is element 2. And then if we wanted to start from scratch, then we could just say Jedi list dot clear. One slightly weird thing about array lists is that you can only put objects inside of them. I'll link in the description to a video I have explaining the difference between primitives and objects. Essentially, there's only 8 primitive data types in Java, and we can't directly put any of them inside of an array list. So we couldn't say like array list int equals new array list. Or Eclipse is just going to say, hey, you can't do this, you can't put an int inside of an array list. So what we do is we put the integer wrapper class, which is pretty much the exact same as an int, just it's an int that can do stuff like fit into array lists. And once you've indicated that you want the integer wrapper class to be what's inside of the array list, then you can actually just directly add normal ints now, because Java does something called auto-boxing, which is just turning normal ints into the integer wrapper class if you try putting them inside of this array list. So it's just automatically going to convert normal ints into integers with a capital I. So if we make our normal ints int1 and set it to 5, then int list will just autobox int1 and add it into the array list. So if we run this, then 5 will get added to the array list. And it's the same for chars, booleans, bytes, shorts, ints, longs, floats, and doubles. All the other primitive data types in Java. All you have to do is just insert their associated wrapper class into the array list. So that's the essentials of array lists. Let's make one that's a little bit more fun now. Let's go array list vehicle list equals new array list. And Eclipse is going to say, hey, what's a vehicle? I don't know what a vehicle is, so we're going to make a vehicle. If you just go to the same source folder that your code is in and hit new class, then we're going to make a vehicle class. If you've never made your own class before, then don't worry, I'll guide you through the process. We're going to make vehicle an abstract class. There's a super awesome Java book that I'll link to in the description as well that does a really good job of explaining abstract classes and interfaces and all that. Essentially, an abstract class is just a class that you can't actually make an instance of. So why make an abstract class if you can't even make an instance of it? Because we can make a class that inherits from the abstract class that we can't make an instance of. We don't want people to just be able to make generic vehicles, because that raises a lot of questions like what kind of vehicle are we talking about? So if you only want to allow specific vehicles to be made, like cars and trucks and boats, then you can just make the class vehicle abstract. For our super simple vehicle, let's just make one method. We'll just say public abstract void make noise. So now every single class that inherits from vehicle has to define a method called make noise, which is going to be necessary for what we're going to do with our array list next. So we have our class vehicle, that's all we'll do there. Let's make another class in the source folder, and we'll call this one car. And we'll say car extends vehicle, which just means that car is a vehicle. And because car is a vehicle, then it has to have the method make noise. For our abstract method inside of vehicle, we just did a set of parentheses and then a semicolon. So then we put the body inside of car, and we'll just say system.out.println vroom vroom. And I'll just copy and paste this, and then we'll make a boat inside of the same source folder still. And our boats can go vroom vroom splish splash. Inside of our array list, remember we said it can only take in vehicles, but we made it so that you can't actually make a specific instance of a vehicle since we made the vehicle class abstract. So what we can do inside of the array list is take advantage of polymorphism and pass in cars and boats. And it's going to let us do that because cars and boats are both vehicles, since we said extends vehicle in their class definitions. So we can say vehicle list dot add, and then we'll just make a car and a boat to add in here. So car1 equals new car, and boats1 equals new boats, and then vehicle list add car1 and vehicle list add boat1. And now we can do something even more awesome. Because we know cars and boats both have to have make noise methods, since we declared that in our abstract class, that all classes inheriting from vehicle have to have a method called make noise. Now we can make a method that accepts our array list of vehicles and just makes all of them make noise. So if we say public void all vehicles make noise, and just accept our array list into this method, then we can put a for loop inside of the method for int I equals 0 while I is less than vehicle list dot size I plus plus. And then we can just say vehicle list dot get I, so that grabs the ith element of vehicle list. And now that we've grabbed it, we can access its methods. We can say get I and then make noise. So the beautiful thing about this is that the method doesn't even have to know which type of vehicles it's taken in. So someone else, some other programmer could come along and write a vehicle, and this method could be performed on that vehicle because we know that every single vehicle has to have a make noise method. So if we or someone else decides to make a new vehicle, then this method won't have to change. We know that every object getting passed in is a vehicle, and we know that every single vehicle has a make noise method. So in our main, we can just call all vehicles make noise. Now I'm going to do something that might be a little bit confusing to anyone who's new to Java. I'm just going to make an instance of this class that we're already working inside of. So I'll say ArrayLists this program. These names really aren't very descriptive. I just named the class ArrayLists since that's what the video's on. If we go ArrayList this program equals new ArrayLists. So what we're doing is instantiating an object into memory. The blueprint for that object is just the class that we're working inside of. So when we say new, we're saying make a new instance of this class that we're inside of. and call that instance this program. And the reason I'm doing that is so that we can call all vehicles make noise, since it's not a static method. If we tried doing it without creating it first, if we just said all vehicles make noise and passed it our vehicle list, then we're going to get an error just saying that, hey, it's not a static method, so you can't call it from inside of a static method, since main is a static method. Again, I'll link to some awesome books and videos in the description that go more in depth with classes and objects and polymorphism and all this stuff. So we've made an instance of our program in memory. So now we can just say this program dot all vehicles make noise. So if we run this now, then we'll get vroom vroom splish splash, or whatever order that we put it in. We get vroom vroom from our car, and then vroom vroom splish splash from our boat. Let's do the same thing with an array now. Let's just take our car and our boat, and we'll pass them into an array instead of passing them into our array list. In this case, we might save a few lines of code from putting it into an array list, but since we're not actually doing anything complex, then it's really not that much of a difference, since we're not like doing any inserts or swaps or deletes or anything like that. So the same thing with a normal array would just be vehicle array equals new vehicle array, and we'll indicate how many elements, 50, and now we can just put car 1 and boat 1 into our vehicle array. Vehicle array 0 will be car 1, and vehicle array 1, boat 1. And we can pass this array to the original method that we made, so we're just going to overload that method and make a version of it that takes in an array of vehicles. And then inside of the method, we can just change size to length. And of course, vehicle list to vehicle array. And with an array, we won't have to get it. We can just say vehicle bracket I dot make noise. Now, if we ran this as it is right now, then it would crash because there's only actually 2 vehicles inside of the array. So once it got to the 3rd element, then it would try making noise, but it won't be able to make noise because there's no vehicle there to make noise. So I'll say this program dot all vehicles make noise and pass it the array, and we can just watch it crash. Exception in thread main cannot invoke vehicle.makeNoise because vehicle array I is null. So inside of our method, we just have to say something like if vehicle array I is not null, then vehicle array I make noise. That's it for this video. Again, I'll link to some super awesome books and videos in the description for anyone who might be interested.